for BDS came in 2005, July 2005. This was the 1 year anniversary of the International Court of Justice decision that the wall was illegal, the apartheid wall, because it's built on Palestinian lands, because it separates Palestinians from their own social services, because it is part of a huge system of control of movement and taking over land in the West Bank. So the 1 year anniversary of the wall was the unified call for boycott, divestment, and sanctions. And it is a call that says something along those lines. It says it's a call upon people of conscience around the world, including Israelis who are specifically mentioned in the call. And it tells them to use the tools of boycotts, divestments, sanctions on Israel until it complies with international law and international principles of human rights. You can go and see the call and many of the news of the movement in the movement website, bdsmovement.net. And there are three major asks of the movement. There are three pillars of what we want to happen. One is, I think that I try to remember it through the button. You know how we abbreviate things through buttons. So it says freedom, return, and equality. So freedom is the end of the occupation. Return is the right of return, implementation of the right of return of Palestinian refugees. And equality is full equality for Palestinians in Israel-Palestine, including inside Israel. These are rights-based approach asks. This is what we need, and this is about rights. It's about equal rights, it's about end of occupation, it's about international law. They are not phrased in the old political language of what is the solution to the conflict. There are several reasons why they are not phrased in that way, but the most important reason that you should know, the first one, is that the people who signed this call did not agree on a political solution. They couldn't. This is a very wide call. It is signed by over 170 civil society organizations in Palestine. So this includes women's organizations and youth organizations and labor unions and the Muslim organizations and the communists, and they don't agree with each other on anything. Anything. Yeah. Yeah. And they don't have the same vision. They really don't. And if you ask them one state, two state, many of them are two-staters, and many of them are one-staters, and some of them are anarchist anti-staters. And the feminists definitely will be on that side, I think, many of them that I know. So there is some idea that the BDS movement has a hidden agenda. They are trying to promote a one-state solution. They are trying to destroy the two-state solution. It's kind of weird. Because if you talk to the people who actually signed the original call, many of them are associated with the Palestinian Authority. They have a lot at stake with the two-state solution. They are the most strong defenders of the two-state solution and the independent Palestinian state that they are not willing to let go of. And then there are others who think differently. What is happening on the ground is that many people feel a little discouraged about the two-state solution. So they project it on whatever is happening. So they say, oh, they want one state. Well, so this is a rights-based approach movement. And another reason why it is so is because this is much more inclusive. Because there is no general agreement within the Palestinian national movements as to do we let go of the two-state solution, which is the national stance right now, at least of the PA, or do we move on to something else? There is no such agreement. So why, the idea of this movement is actually to do something very different. This movement, well, maybe I keep saying movement, because we have this slide and this logo that says BDS movement. This movement is not really a movement in the way that most people think about. That's another common misconception. It's not a top-down movement. There is no real top-down leadership. It is made up of local initiatives and small local initiatives all around the world. So there was a call, and then there are all these different responses to the call of people who continue doing the same work they did before locally in Lyon, France, or in South Africa, or in Sydney, Australia, yes? And they continue doing their Palestine solidarity activism or their peace work or whatever they were doing before with their politics, with their priorities, with their community, with their connections. Nothing has changed. But their response to the call is, hey, let's look around and see if we can use these tools. Now, what is the power of these tools? The tools are the tools that tell us to move from just doing consciousness raising and education and outreach to doing specific actions to change local policies. This is BDS. The call is a call for action. That's another misconception that I hear a lot around here. I've been here for a year now in the US, working with Global Exchange and now with American Friends Service Committee. And I travel a lot. And I meet a lot of local groups and I go to all these conferences. And there is this huge debate. Are we going to endorse the BDS call or not? Phew, and we don't agree with that wording, and what does this mean? And let's do a teaching about, okay, this is okay. It's a good educational thing. You can endorse the call or not endorse the call, but nobody asked you to endorse the call. It's not your call, it's not my call. It's the Palestinian civil society call. And it is a call for action. It calls upon you to do, not to endorse the call. So you can endorse the call if you want, but that's not what you were asked to do. So, and also if you don't agree with the wording or you do agree, too late, you were not there, and that's the call, okay? It's already there. So the question is, how do you respond to the call with action? And this is another shift that I detect in our movement since the 2000s. I'm talking now about the Israeli movement. And I'm saying that in analog to the American movement, not in analog to the Palestinians, of course. The shift is a shift from protest to resistance. This is how we were phrasing it in 2003, from protest to resistance. Because we lost our audience. Because we thought, hey, we cannot change public opinion. The tides are against us. They are pulling to the right. They are pulling to very extreme nationalist, racist politics. What can we do? We can try and trace the places where we can do civil disobedience or direct action or make the powers that be acknowledge that we are there and that we do not agree and that we offer an alternative vision. Because right now we are totally unseen, we are totally invisible. These tools, such as boycott, divestment, sanctions, are the tools of the powerless. You know, when we say this is a non-violent tactic, we don't just mean that it is not violent. These are the classical tools of non-violence, Kingian non-violence, Gandhian non-violence. This is one of the stages of non-violence. When you have a local non-violent campaign, one of the stages to escalate it, when the other side does not really see you as equal, does not really negotiate with you in good faith, does not really want to reach any compromise with you and see you as a partner in their joint planning, in their joint future thinking of what it can be that includes all of us, then you have to show them that they need to talk to you. If you think about workers' struggles, yes, you appeal to the management, say, hey, you know, we're here, you cannot do that to us. And they say, yeah, we can. So you start with negotiation, okay? And then when negotiation doesn't work, on the other side, which is the powerful side, doesn't want or doesn't need to discuss anything with you, you escalate. Then you start by threatening with a strike. You don't start with a strike. It's kind of stupid. You have to use your threats, yes? An ultimatum is very powerful. This is the theory of nonviolence. You threaten with a strike. And then when you have to, you know, you have to follow through on your ultimatums or else you will not be taken seriously, and you have to strike and see what happens, and you try. And the idea of a strike is telling the employer, hey, you need us, you need our cooperation. This is a tool of non-cooperation. The same thing here. For so many years, we try to appeal to our governments and say, hey, you cannot do that, you cannot do that, you cannot do that. And they do that. So we need to use our tools of non-cooperation. Our tools of non-cooperation is our power. Our power. We do have some power. They need us for something. Who is the they? We will discuss in a moment. And what do they need us for? I don't know. They need us as voters. They need us as consumers. They need us as investors. Whatever they need us for, this is where we can make a stand. So another part of the theory of nonviolence is that when you try and tackle a situation of such grave imperative of power, you try and analyze what are the sources of power of the opposition. where do they draw their support from? And you go after their supports. You don't go after their supports in order to eliminate them, kill them, destroy them, and all of these language of violence. That's the whole point. You go after them in order to convince them to stop. You are trying to recruit people. You are trying to move them over to your side by telling them, hey, I have a better alternative. I have something here that you might really like better than what you have right now. That's a great threat. This is a great threat to the other side, because they say, hey, they are being very convincing. They are convincing too many people. That's the power of nonviolence. Okay? And another important principle of classical nonviolence is, of course, that you're not trying to overpower the other side or the opponent. You're trying to recruit them. So it is a method of communication. And this is an important point whenever I speak about this in Israel, and I do sometimes, because in Israel, boycott, the Hebrew for boycott is actually a religious word, cherem, which means excommunication. So this is part of the reason why Israelis react so badly to the word boycott. So instead of saying the Hebrew, cherem in Hebrew, we use English. We say boycott, which is a foreign word to explain what we mean. And sometimes I even say consumer strike, because I want them to understand that we're not talking about excommunication. Because their idea, and some of the meanings of boycott in some people's minds, is I'm cutting all my ties with that thing. This is unpure. I don't want to touch this. I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you. You know, you're not part of my society. You're not part of my realm of interaction. It's cutting ties. The Gandhian boycott is not that. The Kingian boycott is not that. You know, the Cesar Chavez boycott is not that. And I tried to explain that to Israelis by just using a recent example. I don't know if you heard about the last summer where Israelis went to the streets in bulk. There are hundreds of thousands of the largest demonstrations in Israel's history. And one of the elements of that movement, social movement for mostly economic rights, was a boycott on cottage cheese that actually started this campaign. So I tell Israelis, you know, you boycott cottage cheese because you love cottage cheese or because you hate cottage cheese? Okay, so that's the same thing. That kind of boycott is an action of love. We love cottage cheese. We want more of it. But we want the people who make the cottage cheese to know that we are here. That's the thing. And it says, we are the consumer. You have to take us into account. This is what it means. We want you to change your policies. You have to really look into that seriously. Because we do have some power. In fact, we have a lot of power in the economic sphere, in the cultural sphere, and so on. So that's the tool of non-cooperation. Okay?